Thank you, Mr. Chairman. South Carolina is experiencing a remarkable spat of economic growth. From the Grand Strand of the PD, new businesses are opening, manufacturers are investing, and families are moving in. That growth is a tremendous opportunity, but it does pose some significant challenges. Yesterday, President Trump issued executive orders declaring a national energy emergency and directing swift action to boost grid reliability and cut red tape for energy projects. These steps are both timely and necessary. Power demand is rising sharply. There's a lot of contributing factors to that, but it is. And in South Carolina, nuclear power provides more than half of our electricity, giving us a pretty strong foundation. But permitting delays, premature plant retirements, and transmission bottlenecks threaten not only our state, but all 50 states. We need a federal policy that keeps pace with innovation. That means faster permitting, support for fuel-secure generation, and a strong, reliable grid. I appreciate the testimony of all the witnesses today. My initial questions, Mr. Bhatia, appreciate your comments on the need to reshore semiconductor chip manufacturing and secure our supply chains in this country. As you noted, China controls an overwhelming majority of global capacity for critical material refining and processing, an unacceptable strategic vulnerability on our part. During our hearing with the regional grid operators, we heard that regions like New England, as an example, are facing real constraints on natural gas capacity. That bottleneck is holding back the type of energy-intensive investments that we need to support AI and manufacturing. So if we're going to plan for the future where we reshore significant portions of our supply chain, how important do you believe permitting reform is to infrastructure like natural gas pipelines and the like?
I think it's critical, and I think the cost of inaction that we've had over the last several years and continue to have is very, very high. I mean, you've heard multiple data points and testimony around the sharp spike in demand that is forecasted, both because of the data centers that are going to be built, as well as the manufacturing in semiconductors, as well as other industry segments. And so, after having many, many years where supply and demand has been matched and stable, this spike threatens to create a dislocation that could ultimately threaten the viability of some of these projects longer term, whether those are in the data center segment or in manufacturing. And I think streamlining and working to be able to remove duplicative processes between federal and state is something that both parties can get behind, and states, red states and blue states both can get behind, trying to ensure that there is a streamlined process for critical projects to move forward.
Sir, do you think that we can realistically meet our energy demands without those simple reforms that you talked about?
I'm not sure. I believe that I don't think we should try and figure that out. I think we should make sure we move forward with the permitting, and I think the permitting needs to be across transmission, it needs to be across generation, and it needs to be across all of the above sources of energy investments that we need to make.
Thank you. Dr. Schmidt, appreciate you staying a little bit. Your testimony laid out the strategic importance of AI in the race with China in pretty stark terms. You mentioned that AI data centers could require up to 10 gigawatts of power each, and that we risk falling behind. Given what we're seeing across the country, though, especially in states with business-friendly environments, can you speak to the importance of permitting reform and how it relates to our competitiveness in the AI space?
When you look at people who have the money, they still can't get the permits, and in particular the interconnection permits that are needed to get into the grid. You can solve that problem by, for example, building your own power plant next to your own data center, but that's not particularly efficient. There are all sorts of other issues. If you look at the cost of, for example, building, I'll give you an example. TSMC built a semiconductor plant in Arizona, and by the time they were done, it cost 4 times more than in Taiwan. Some of that is labor, some of that is permitting, some of it is government. We are not competitive globally against our key partners and competitors with respect to costs and timing.
Thank you for that. And you also mentioned the potential for AI to help manage and secure our grid. What role do you see for the federal government in AI-enabled grid modernization, particularly for regions like mine in the Southeast that are growing so rapidly?
So way back when, before all this was well known, Google did an initiative where we looked at our data centers, which had been designed by the very best scientists, according to us, in our own arrogant way, And we applied our own AI, and it beat our own top people by 15%. That 15% of efficiency went straight to the bottom line. It showed me that you can take any system and using AI do more what is called predictive analytics, and you can predict loads and basically shed loads and handle it much more efficiently. That is where our grid needs to be.
Thank you.